What's a dead giveaway that someone has been raised in a strict household? Fear of being rejected once others know your true bad nature, always feeling like you are not good enough. If your self-worth growing up is entirely dependent on your ability to conform to a particular set of rules and live up to an unrealistic or unhealthy standard, it is very easy to feel like you are fundamentally a bad person when you no longer follow those rules. It thus is difficult to develop your own person and feel confident in your own skin and show your honest self to other people when you feel like that self is fundamentally bad and expect rejection. Edit. Pronouns. My friends used to make fun of me for getting up at 8 AM on Saturday to deep clean my apartment. I hadn't lived with my folks for about 5 years, but to this day, Saturday morning is time for chores, and the consequences for missing chores is just something I cannot comprehend. I've been told multiple times that I'm the cleanest bachelor that anyone has ever met. Personally, I'm afraid to help with any household chores when I'm at someone else's house, like doing the dishes after dinner, because I might do them wrong and then the host would be upset with me. Anything which I need to do, whether it's school work for my job, or something that needs doing around the house, I'll try to do when no one is around or when no one can see. I know the person will like the finished product, but if they see me working on it they might get upset that I'm not doing it the right way. They apologize excessively. They're always the first person to leave when hanging out, and their parents always chaperoned at school functions in high school. Fear of authoritative voices and people. I know people who are genuinely anxious, not because of abuse, but fear of disappointing others. Edit. Wow, I'm kinda worried about you guys. They don't laugh at their mistakes. They can't yell, because loudness has been frightened out of them from a very young age. Took a drama class with one girl and we all had to practice yelling. She couldn't do it, like physically couldn't do it, and broke down in tears trying. The teacher just took her aside and said, "Whoa, honey, someone did this to you. Do you know that?" Asking for permission to do just about everything. They're prudish at first, but when they're drunk they're asking you to sit on their face. If they come to your house and ask for a drink, they won't accept grab something from the fridge as an option. One does not simply open another's fridge. Being jumpy. People always laugh when I jump as they say something loudly and unexpectedly, but the origins of that aren't really that funny. Lack of ability as an adult to make decisions because they were never allowed to make any. This thread is making me tear up. So many realizations are hitting me about my upbringing, why I am who I am and why I act certain ways. When she uses her telekinetic powers to murder everyone at her prom. Self-criticism and compliance. At least that's true in my case, and I was raised in a strict household until my parents separated. I tend to be perfectionistic about my behavior. I don't like to make any mistakes at all, and get very angry at myself if I do make any mistakes. I tend to follow rules, be inhibited and accommodating, and I fail to rebel against authority, but I do rebel against my peers and prefer not to fit in. I've always thought of these as being markers of a strict household. If you were raised in a household that prioritized behavior and doing things right, then you tend to treat yourself the same way as an adult. Oh, also, I'm only really comfortable in situations where I know my role and I know the rules. So I'm very comfortable in formal situations such as work, but very uncomfortable in informal situations such as work parties or any other social event where I don't have a clear role, really, because I don't feel like I know the rules for socializing. Of course, that's because there aren't any rules. You're just supposed to be a person. There's no objective or direction to it, but I'm very uncomfortable with there being no rules. Give me rules. Oddly, I'm comfortable on dates. Again, I feel like I know what my role is somehow. I know what's happening and what kinds of expectations there may be. So I tend to be very confident when dating. But fortunately I do not see dates as authority figures. I see them as peers. So I won't be compliant. They are questioning their decisions often, mostly to themselves. I don't know a lot of TV shows and actors from when I was growing up. I basically lived under a rock. On the flip side, I was raised in a somewhat strict religious household and sometimes see normal, secular family behavior as wildly permissive. You were allowed to go anywhere alone with your girlfriend when you were a teenager? Whoa. What do you mean you just decided you didn't want to go to church when you were 16? Your parents didn't force you to go? You could pick out all your own clothes? And your mom let you dye your hair? Currently in a strict household. I'm not allowed to do that. We'll get in trouble. I can't go because of my parents. You're allowed to do that? Sorry, I got grounded. That's too late. I have to be back for curfew. Formerly from a strict household. Oh, I wasn't allowed to do that. I never tried that before. About something very common. I don't know that. Very famous. Actor. Never heard of it. I never stayed up that late. They cringe every time I lift up the back of my hand. They are rowdy as duck in university, once they are on their own. Lots of drug use, including alcohol, and sleeping around. Not that that is a bad thing. They are just experimenting a bit later than most people. Wincing entirely too much while reading these posts. Really not wanting to disappoint others. I get so nervous I'm doing something wrong. All the time. Also, if your parents are immigrants, you tend to relate to other people with immigrant parents because they all want to have doctors, lawyers, and such as children. African parents, man. Mine weren't even the worst. They're great to be honest, especially compared to my friends. Perhaps immediate obedience in regards to authority figures. This excludes questioning and or outwardly defying authority from time to time, and feeling anxious when visiting a friend's home or the home of a stranger where you don't already know the rules and whatnot. I know for me personally, mostly as a child, I was amazed that so many of my friends were raised in households with looser rules than the one in which I was raised. For instance, many of my childhood friends walked around the house with their shoes on, which I could not believe, and when I would offer to help with the after supper dishes as I was taught, the parents would smile and shake their heads and tell me that it wasn't necessary and that I could go play. One time someone told me to stop saying sorry so much and my response was I'm sorry. Being really uptight at other people's houses. Not disrupting or moving anything even if it means not having a place to sit. Worrying about where to place things like jacket or a glass. Not asking for anything. Making sure your friend asked and double checked with their parent that it was okay for them to have you over. Very antisocial. Once walked into my friend's dorm and while I was waiting for him to come, I saw his roommate and made small talk. The guy started backing off and apologizing to me like it was my dorm. Very weird. They normally show a bit more respect to not offend anyone. Usually more worried about what other people may think. Raised in a very strict household. Telltale sign. I rarely smile. Fun is one of those words I barely use. I don't find the joy in much of anything I do. And the kicker is I don't care. I was raised in Spanish household where my father had the last say and my mother made the rules. Be in at dark. Homework immediately you get home. Misbehave. When I got grounded I got put in the extra bedroom with 4 white walls and a bed. I could not leave except to go to school or the bathroom. The only thing I could do to get away was play baseball, up until I graduated high school. But because we moved to a different state I had no clue where I wanted to go to college. I had my life set when I lived in Florida. Finished my senior year as an amazing player. I have trophies and medals and carp to prove it, with no future. Me as a human now, I have a horrible attitude. I can't hold a job. Relationships are difficult. I hate you, I promise. I'm a loner and have 0 friends cause I push them all away at some point. It's hard, but I don't care. I'll just get beyond it. Low self-esteem. Constantly concerned with how others perceive you. Like more than the normal amount. Hard to quantify. Constant apologies. Avoids confrontation to the point where they may lie. Your clock. What clock? Oh, that one? Wasn't me? You didn't see me do that. Or actively seeks the confrontation to get it over with. I broke your clock, so sorry man. I'll pay you back as soon as blah blah blah. Comma, there's no middle ground. Just an extreme. Never expresses emotion. Bottles them up. I would know. I am one of those kids. They complain about getting an A. There was this one kid who usually got A for maths. He raged when he got an A. They really worry about curfews. Grades. Even if it's high, it's not good enough. A couple friends have pointed out that I became a fairly good liar after my mom left and my dad suddenly decided he was going to be overly strict. I had to cover for my sister to our last landlord, and our friend that lived with us was absolutely baffled by the ease with which I came up with lies and delivered them to his face. I hate lying and I do avoid it as much as possible. But I'm terrified of confrontation, especially with older men, as my dad was terrifying when he was angry. So if I can get around it with a lie and no one gets hurt, I may choose to. I still get nervous whenever I watch TV at my parents' house. As a teenager, I had stopped watching TV altogether for fear of my dad walking in the room and asking, "What is this? And is it about God? Or I don't like this. This isn't good. Turn it off." Basically, any TV show post 1970 was off limits. Generally, they are extremely adept at lying. They'll have no tells and the cover story will always be airtight. People from strict households typically want to avoid conflict at all costs and have a boatload of experience doing so. For girls from strict households, they normally tend to be very good at cooking, cleaning, or other things that girls are supposed to be good at. Can I go to the bathroom? What the duck do you think this is? Prison? Haha, it's down the hall to the left. I wasn't allowed to watch MTV growing up. 3 things from my own childhood that I'm constantly working on. Obedience. Everything will be done. And done perfectly. Ask them to jump and they won't question how high. They will just jump as hard and as high as they can and pray that it is to your liking. Reserved. They are quiet. Unless they are being spoken to. They will not speak. Unless they were specifically invited. They won't show up to a party or group. Explosive anger. It takes a lot to make them show their anger. But when they do, it is highly explosive and violent, generally towards objects. This is learned from the parent. Are consummate liars at the drop of the hat if they sense they might be in trouble. Comes from kids with strict parents getting really good at planning out complex stories and lies to cover their tracks when they decide to stray outside of the strict household rules. Edited because IDS isn't a word but kids is. Lack of confidence. Strict parents damage a child's concept of self-worth and confidence. Even when these children grow up, they depend on others around them for opinion and can't make decisions on their own. I am one of these people. Subtly ducking the system. They can't do it openly because parents will yell. So it's the small things. Being passive aggressive, smart talking, and backing off if things threaten to get more serious. I've found it's having a total disconnect from others, or understanding of a lot of basic things. Hearing friends talk about their childhoods now, I find it extremely odd. They did so much together as families. They got along with their siblings, went on many trips, got to do what they want, get what they want. It makes me nervous when talking to people cause they ask about my childhood, and when I explain it I see nothing wrong but they get this look on their face, like they're at a funeral or something. It's just harder making connections to people cause you second guess yourself a lot, and are constantly afraid of disappointing others.